Hello and welcome to Newswire. I'm Ayza Omar. We'll be talking about an update that has come through in Indian-occupied Kashmir. So in Geneva on Tuesday, the spokesperson for the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Mr. Rupert Colville, he said that India should unlock freedom curbs in disputed Kashmir. Mr. Colville said the people of Indian-administered Kashmir, Indian-occupied Kashmir, they continue to be deprived of numerous basic freedoms such as the right to a peaceful assembly, the right to moving freely in their own town, in their own homes, in their own cities, the right to healthcare and education, and the freedom to exercise their own religion. This statement came during the two-day visit of a team of EU lawmakers to Srinagar. The team arrived there under tight security yesterday, and one of them, the members of the team, Mr. Herman Terst, who's also a parliamentarian from Spain, he said they are conscious of the fact that they are being kept away from some people. Now, this visit is being made in a personal capacity as the government of India continues to push this narrative and says that it's been organized by a private Indian NGO. So at the same time as this visit was taking place, protests took place, which resulted in the death of 5 innocent Kashmiris. So to try and understand how this visit might be helping in disclosing to the world what the actual situation on the ground is, and to get insight into the BJP-led government's moves, we will be speaking to two of our panel of experts. I have with me today the Advocate Parvez Ahmad, who is the executive member of All Parties Unrest Conference in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. He is joining us in our Islamabad studio today. And also we have with us Ms. Shamim Shawl, who is also the executive member of All Parties Unrest Conference, also joining us from Islamabad. Thank you to both of you. I want to start with you, Mr. Ahmad. We've been speaking to you quite frequently here on Newswire, trying to get an idea of what the situation is there in Indian-occupied Kashmir. But because of the communication blackout, there has been a lot of trouble on your part also to get in touch with your comrades. Now that this has been lifted, at least postpaid in mobile services are now accessible, give us an idea. Do you have more clear information on how your colleagues, your family is faring there in Indian-occupied Kashmir?
Let me make it clear that although the mobile telephones have been restored and landlines to some extent, but I'm here for the last 3 months. I have not been in a position to speak to my parents because when this mobile phone was restored, I just made a call. Even my missus made a call to my parents, and once it was known to the Indians, this call has been coming from Pakistan. The moment the call was made, this telephone got disconnected, and since then I have been making every attempt to reach my parents. So I have not been in a position to make call and get information. But although we have been in a position, our organization, All Parties Unrest Conference, has been in a position, and to some extent we have managed to make access to our people. That is although the leadership is in the jails, they are in the house arrest, but there are some people with whom we have been in a position to talk. The situation in occupied Jammu Kashmir is worsening every coming day. And as you have just referred that the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the spokesperson for High Commissioner made a statement yesterday. This is not the first time, because in 2016 and 2018 there have been 2 reports from the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and they have asked both India and Pakistan to allow the UN fact-finding mission to visit Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but both the times Pakistan welcomed that they will allow, but India refused and just said that they have the institutions who are working on the human rights, they have the independent judiciary, but what kind of independent judiciary they have, I will like to tell you that for the last 3 months, more than 40,000 people are in the bars, behind the bars, and we have moved more than 4,000 habeas corpus petitions against the government of India, but so far none of these habeas corpus petitions have been decided, and you can see how the judiciary is independent and how their institutions are working. Secondly, 5 people have been detained under Section 107 and 151 of the Criminal Procedure Code, which is just if you can submit a bail bond, you don't need to approach the court. They are not even ready to accept those bonds, and the people have been, these are bailable offenses, and they have been kept behind the bars for the last 3 months.
Now that we've seen, and this visit is still underway, we're hoping to learn more as the day unfolds. This visit of these members of European Parliament in a private capacity, despite the fact that they have also met with Prime Minister Modi already and Ajit Doval, the security advisor, but does this in any way open the doors to maybe the kind of people that Indian-occupied Kashmir needs to come in and observe, like representatives from the UN?
You just see that when the people, these parliamentarians were invited, one of the parliamentarians was, it was Robert Collin, he's from England. He was first invited, and when he asked government of India that he needs free access without any hindrance, the invitation was withdrawn. So you see that those who have been invited, they are from far-right organizations, and they have all been talking. They are, you can say they are the followers of Hitler, and they are always talking on Islamic phobia. So the delegation visiting Indian-occupied Kashmir, it has been arranged. It is all being done by design, because India knows that internationally there has been an international condemnation, and there have been international concerns for the resolution of the Kashmir issue. In order to negate these concerns, this delegation has been invited. All Parties Hurriyat Conference yesterday made a press conference in Islamabad, and we have always welcomed that any delegation who would like to visit Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, we will welcome. But what we demand, that it should be given free access. The people have first been hosted in New Delhi, and they have been just briefed where they have to visit and to whom they have to talk, and it means if you will not give them the free access. And one thing I would like to add, that the schools were closed since 5th of August, and one day before there was an announcement was made that they fixed the exams of 10th and 12th class on 10th, these 10th and 12th class exams on the same day. So the boys who had to appear in the exams, they were forced to enter in the examination centers, although most of the boys didn't enter, and at the same time they were just taken to particular areas who were managed by the Indian forces, and people were even forced to come out of their homes. But despite that, we have seen that there have been, as reported by different international newspapers, that at different places there have been the protesters, and pellet guns have been used by India. Yes. And there have been lathi charge, and people have been put in detention. And I will make one more addition, that yesterday 6 people were killed. Right. And it is not clear by whom these people were killed, but I'm pretty sure that these people have been killed by Indian intelligence agencies, because we have the experience in 2000 when Bill Clinton was on a visit to India. On the same day in Chatti Singhpora, 35 Sikhs were killed, and in order to disturb that visit and to...
Mr. Ahmad, I see what you're saying. Sorry to interrupt you. I see what you're saying there. We have also with us Ms. Shamim Shawl, the executive member of All Parties Hurriyat Conference. Ms. Shawl, you heard Mr. Ahmad, and we spoke to an analyst yesterday as well over this issue, the coincidence of whenever there is an outside delegation visiting Indian-occupied Kashmir, especially when it is supervised as strictly as it is this time round with the members of European Parliament by the Indian government, there always seems to be a incident where they can easily say that this has been done by militants. We don't know who fired or killed these innocent civilians. Is this a mere coincidence, or what is the agenda in your interpretation behind this?
That before I will discuss what is the current situation and what happened yesterday, I will tell you that Chris Davis, an MEP, describes this visit that this is a private visit to Kashmir as Modi's publicity stunt. As I said, that this invitation was also given to him, but they withdraw this by when he asked the Indian government to be allowed to move around without any security escort and speak to anyone. And he said that what Indian government has to hide. This is the basic and fundamental question. Therefore, when we say that the situation in Kashmir is very worse and the delegation and all members are right-wing MEPs and have Nazi ideology and they proudly call themselves anti-Muslim. This was also questioned by Rahul Gandhi when he said that about this EU parliamentary delegation. It is a private delegation, and the secretary of the EU parliament said that it is not an official delegation. It's a private parliamentary members delegation, and they.
Even the opposition party members of Indian government, sitting members of the parliament, they've not been allowed access. In fact, the US Democrat, Mr. Van Hollen, just earlier this month, he was not allowed access. So it's becoming, do you think, more and more clear in terms of what the Indian narrative is to the international audience?
This is the Indian and international audience are understanding it clearly that why they managed this visit to Kashmir at that time when Ajay Dowell by design managed the examinations of the students of 11th and 12th years class students. It is not what we said that it is by it was a regular exams. It is all managed to show the people that what is going on is all right.
Do you think, Ms. Shawl, that the events such as the incidents where yesterday, a very unfortunate incident where unknown militants or unknown attackers shot down 5 laborers, killed them, these kind of incidents are also managed to sort of go along with what the Indian narrative has been?
It was, I think, Mr. Ahmad rightly said that it was when President Clinton visited Chatti Singh India, and the accident of Chatti Singh when 6 were eliminated, and I think they were more than 36 who were eliminated, and for 6 months nobody was knowing who were the people, and then it was the army men. And at this time, if you'll see, nobody in India says sorry for this, because everybody knows that it is Indian government doing at that time when the EU parliamentarians were there. And in 800,000, presence of 800,000 Indian troops, how it is possible to kill the people when there is no movement, there is a restriction on everything, no mobile services there, no telephone services there, no transportation is there. These are all what they are managing. Therefore, there are the questions raised by different people, as you have known the Natasha Cole in U.S. Foreign Committee. In front of Foreign Committee, she said that all the basic fundamental freedoms were curbed, and what type of democracy there is. This is a big question mark for Indian democracy, that they are snatching everything.
Okay, Ms. Shawl, let me move on to Mr. Ahmad Ol's point. This is something that yesterday in Islamabad, there was a press conference by the All-Party Hurriyat Conference. They held a seminar, a presser, where essentially their leaders, one of their leaders, Sayyid Faiz Naqshbandi, and also Mr. Sayyid Abdullah Gilani, they said the same thing. They highlighted that if these members of European Parliament on their personal visit can access Indian-occupied Kashmir, then is it time that Indian government allows the UN and their affiliates to come in and see for themselves what the situation is. Do you think that is becoming a near reality now that even this latest facade has been seen through?
Yes, the All Parties Hurriyat Conference, as you just rightly said, made a press conference. We have been always in favor of these delegations. We always talk that Kashmir be open to international community, to international media. We have never spoken against anybody who made any attempt to visit Kashmir. But this particular delegation, which has been pampered by Narendra Modi before coming to Indian occupied Kashmir, they have the designs. because if they are meeting a particular group of people, definitely they will not get the exact information what is going on in Indian occupied Kashmir. I can just say that David Kay, who is a special rapporteur on the freedom of speech and expression, made 7 requests to the government of India that he should be allowed to visit Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. He has been denied. He met in September to us at the United Nations High Commissioner's office. We just asked him why you don't visit to Jammu and Kashmir where the situation is worsening. He just showed that he has made 7 requests. And at the same time, the other 6 special rapporteurs requested government of India that they should be given the permission. And it is more important that even UN High Commissioner requested government of India that that commission should be allowed, fact-finding mission should be allowed to visit. They have been denied it. If the Modi is not so generous that he has just allowed this delegation to visit Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
Right. No, this was a deliberate attempt. Mr. Ahmad, hold that thought. Let me come to you, Ms. Shawl. We're running out of time, so if I could get your comments on this. Do you see that the international community might be succeeding in finally pressurizing Prime Minister Modi to take back his steps that he has imposed since August 5th in Indian occupied Kashmir?
That latest report of UN Human Rights Chief is very important, that when he said that India should unlock the situation and the freedoms curbed in the disputed Kashmir is not it is not the possibility for the people to deny that, for the international community to deny what India is doing. All these statements are very important for international community to look why these people, the few parliamentarians are visiting Kashmir and the rest of the parliamentarians are not allowed to go. And even the journalists, the question was also raised that international journalists were not allowed to go and visit Kashmir as it is their moral responsibility and duty. That is what India is making everything by design, and it is his design to say that everything is good there, everything is okay, and therefore I'll have a statement from the EU parliamentarians. But this is the important is that what the statement of EU Parliament is that it is not an official parliamentarian delegation, it is a private visit and by private NGOs, and therefore it is manipulated and
I see what you're saying there, Ms. Shawl. Thank you so much for giving us your insight there and your time. This is an important point she's essentially raising, Mr. Ahmad, is that even when this delegation returns from Srinagar, these members of the European Parliament, they come forward and give their statement. Even though we've heard from one of them, a parliamentarian from Spain who's part of this delegation, Mr. Herman Tersch, who said that we are very aware that we are being kept away from certain people, not to get their point of view. Is their verdict going to be taken seriously? Is it going to be taken at face value?
Of course, what you just said, that let us watch. India cannot hide things because they have the understanding, although they are biased, but definitely they might have perceived what is going on in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. If there are more than 1 million troops, they have not gone just for the picnic there. If the people are standing outside the houses, outside the shops, definitely it will give an impression to these members that Kashmir is the biggest prison in the world. Right. So we are not much worried that what they are going to write, because there is an international opinion that in Kashmir the people are being harassed, their human rights violations are being committed, and there have been 2 reports of from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and the Office of the High Commissioner represents United Nations, and United Nations represents the entire world. So these reports are more stronger and carry more weight than those people who even have not been allowed by, who have not been endorsed by
Mr. Ahmad, hold that. Let me welcome another voice who is joining us. Lieutenant General Amjad Shoaib, a defense analyst, is on call with us here. The latest developments, General, have been an eye-opener, as our guests are saying. There have been a reality for those who are aware of the events in Indian occupied Kashmir. But do you agree that the international community is finally seeing through very clearly what the BJP-led government in India has been trying to say or cover up in Indian-occupied Kashmir?
See, till this day, the cover-up has failed. They have not been able to cover it up the way they wanted to do it. And now they have created this drama that they have brought some far-right people from European Union. And they are trying to, but then they also had to face the stone pelters. They also had to face the protesters. So naturally, this drama has also failed. But at the same time, you see, when you are staging a drama of this type, naturally you take the delegation to a particular area where you have already created a scene which is favorable. So people also know these things. So I don't think that they will be able to cover it up. At the same time, you know, the United Nations is also pressurizing. They have come up with this statement that India should immediately restore the human rights situation in Kashmir. So I think the situation is aggravating, and this tragedy, which is in fact appearing in Indian held Kashmir, will definitely attract more attention of the international community, and India will not be able to cover it up the way they want to do it.
What we saw yesterday, we saw as this event was taking place, the first day of this delegation's trip to Srinagar was underway. Not only did we see clashes unfold and the protesters stone pelting, but at the same time we heard from one of the members of UK Parliament who was also invited and had to and was denied then this invitation. The invitation was taken back, Mr. Chris Davies, because he had said that he would not be supervised, that he would like to move around freely to assess for himself. Now, when these kind of statements come in, and then the UN Human Rights Chief also makes a statement saying there is grave concern over the kind of control and curfews that the Indian government has imposed here, do you feel like this issue of an Indian-occupied Kashmir is finally getting that kind of international attention that it has long deserved?
It is absolutely obvious. The issue is, with the passage of time, it is gaining momentum and it is gaining more attention of the international community. This is indicative of this thing. And then the European Union member whose invitation was withdrawn, he has made his statement public. So immediately, I think the international community and the people all over the world, they know what were the intentions behind this arrangement of a delegation moving into Srinagar. And the statement has definitely uncovered the whole drama. So I personally have a feeling that these are some of those efforts which the Indians are making, which are not going to be successful. After all, the international community, they are probing, they are moving around to find out the situation. Only the other day, a Kashmiri journalist, he had written a very lengthy article, and he has been going about in various villages and various areas of Indian-held Kashmir. And he has been interacting with the people. Right. He has depicted the actual situation where the economy of the area is failing, where the people are starving, where the people cannot carry their sick people to the hospitals, and they are being checked at every point and they cannot move freely. So all these things are also coming out in the press and people are seeing. So how can you hide these atrocities which are taking place there?
But General, one would argue then that despite the fact that this attention, the media attention is sort of the Kashmir awareness campaign, if I may, is gaining momentum. Despite that, it seems that it's not deterring the Indian government, because what we're hearing now is in the next few days, in fact, on Thursday, the Indian government plans to go full steam ahead in dividing this occupied territory into those two union territories as it announced on August 5th.
See, the pressure which the Indian government is facing today, it is all moral pressure. We haven't seen any political pressure on the Indian government, and for political pressure, it has to be the P5 countries of the United Nations Security Council. And for that, I think Pakistan, along with China, we have to make effort. We have to engage them. We have to make them realize the kind of situation which is developing there in Indian-held Kashmir. At the same time, I think we also have to work through various NGOs and through various other human rights organizations to mobilize the public opinion in these P5 countries.
Right, but General, sorry to interrupt you, but the concern also is that while Pakistan continues to push this diplomatic effort, this awareness campaign, it seems like it has enough on its plate. What with those constant unprovoked firing that are killing innocent civilians on our side of the border by India?
That is happening. But again, I think we must contact the United Nations. We must pressurize. We must move around and keep on hammering this requirement of bringing in the United Nations observers to the embassy. See, India, it's a game which India is playing. They have been telling to the international community that there are people who are infiltrating from Pakistan side, and there is no movement, freedom movement in Kashmir. It is actually the Pakistan-initiated terrorism which is taking place. So that they say that when we have to stop the infiltrators, we have to fire. So these things are to be, not only we have to make people realize that India is lying, but at the same time we must pressurize, we must tell the international community that if we are doing so, then why India is hesitant in bringing these United Nations observers to the LOC? Why don't they allow them? So the point is there has to be a campaign which we have to design, formulate, and then launch it. We have to be in contact with the P5 countries. We have to see these are various facets of the same issue which we have to address.
Okay, but General, there's also a concern by some critics, some analysts who say that it seems like the only way the world attention or those who, like the 5 permanent members of the UN you mentioned, the only way they would finally make that move that would deter the BJP-led government is if they would see something like what they call a limited war between these two nuclear armed states. Do you think this is as far as it will have to go before they take a step?
No, this is not I think, I wouldn't call it a prudent idea. The only thing is that I know that negotiations are the ultimate solution because we have fought 3 wars. And all the 3 wars with India, the only dispute which we had with India was, or the cause for these wars was the Kashmir issue. Now, if we couldn't resolve that issue, now today both the countries are nuclear power. Can you take that risk? So if India imposes a war, then naturally you are there in the war and you can do anything that you feel like doing. But other than that, ultimately one has to get back to the negotiation table.
No, but General, I think you misunderstood. What I was trying to say was that some analysts are commenting on this, that because the world leaders are not responding with the kind of political pressure that is needed to deter the Indian government, it seems like some horrible will have to happen, especially considering the kind of unprovoked fighting from India's side. So is that the kind of incident that will finally move them to put that pressure on India?
See, India would like to involve you in a war. Because when the war between the two nuclear powers, it takes place, then naturally the international community will start paying attention towards their attention will get diverted towards the bigger issue, which will be the war between the two nuclear states. And the Kashmir issue will get to the background. See, the focus will be on a different thing. So a focus will be on a bigger concern which the international community will have. And they will stop talking about Kashmir. They'll say, first of all, we must ensure peace between the two countries and let's negotiate and let's pressurize both the sides to get separated. They should not be fighting on each other. Such like things may happen. But I say that because I have a look on the history, it has been happening previously also. The ceasefires were enforced by United Nations and nobody talked about Kashmir because that became the main issue at that time. So I think the main issue, and even if one has to go to war, if let's say even India forces us to go to war by staging.
General, sorry, I'll have to interrupt you there. We're running out of time. Very quickly, Mr. Ahmad, if I could get your last 30 seconds comment, especially on how the Indian government, despite the kind of international attention it's getting with this latest sort of disaster of this European delegation going on a very controlled visit, them moving ahead either way to divide the Jammu and Kashmir into 2 union territories, are you concerned what would unfold in Jammu and Kashmir as a result?
One thing is very important for all parties, Hurriyat Conference, that is sustenance of the movement. And we have been in a position to sustain this movement for the last 30 years and we will continue it. Because if this movement will sustain, definitely there will be an international intervention. And secondly, it is not possible for India to continue to keep the 1 million troops out of their barracks. So definitely they have to, for the last 3 months, they have been making every attempt to engage with the leadership of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but the Indian leadership, the leadership of occupied Jammu and Kashmir has refused to meet them. So they are also worried about the situation. And at the same time, Pakistan has to keep on hammering and they have to sensitize the international community. and keep on sending the messages to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. They are working for the resolution of the Kashmir issue, and I hope it will definitely it will send a positive message and the issue will be resolved ultimately.
Okay, Mr. Ahmad joining us from our Islamabad studios, and Mr. Lieutenant General Amjad Shoaib. Thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to us and highlighting what is unfolding there in Indian-occupied Kashmir. But right now, we'll take a quick short break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching Newswire with me, Ayza Omar. Now, there's a lot going on in Baghdad, and to bring you up to speed, let me just give you an idea of what's been happening in the past 24 hours at least. The Iraqi government officials, they're right now denying these news reports of masked gunmen having killed at least 18 people by one count in an incident yesterday in Iraq's southern city of Karbala. Now, the governor of Karbala is saying that this news of masked gunmen opening fire is completely fabricated and false news. Now, this Tuesday's incident, this unfortunate incident came as Iraqis took to the streets across the country for a fifth day to protest against official corruption, mass unemployment, and failing public services. So the protests have also followed a previous bout of protests earlier in the month of October that took place, again, a leaderless and largely spontaneous anti-government demonstrations. And that time, too, security forces were seen using tear gas, rubber bullets, and live ammunition to break up these rallies. So we'll be discussing the nature of these protests, how they have once again cropped up this month, and at the same time try and get a handle on the political situation, which is getting worse. It seems that now that one of Iraq's leading Shiite clerics and powerful politicians is calling on other parties to back him in removing Prime Minister Adel Abdul Mahdi. So before we get into more details, let me introduce our guest joining us, Dr. Bamo Nouri, an academic, political analyst, and investigative journalist, and expert of U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East, is joining us right now from London. Dr. Nouri, thank you so much for taking out the time. What do you make of this latest development? Not only have we seen Mr. Muqtada al-Sadr, who leads, as I understand, the largest political bloc in parliament, but also getting the backing he needs in order to remove Mr. Mahdi from office.
I think this political situation in Iraq is rather sequential. Of a series of different things that have taken place to bring Iraq to where it is today and all of the problems that come associated with it. So first things first, Iraq's corruption since 2005 has come as a direct result of the rushed and divisive constitution of 2005. One of the key things about this document was that it was rushed and it was very, very divisive, probably the most divisive document in Iraq's history that continuously and consistently mentions different sects, different religious practices, etc., and overall has very, very ambiguous provisions. Now, this constitution that was made during an occupation, and it was made by an Iraqi elite that was instilled by the US, and it was made within an Iraq that was terribly fatigued by years of sanctions and war, was never going to be fit for purpose. Now, one of the things is that this constitution then gave birth to the political system of Iraq. When you have a system that governs based on ethnicity, sect, and religion, it takes away meritocracy. It takes away individuals who are capable to make informed decisions in responsibility holding posts. And this is what you have with Iraq. Those that take positions based on these sects or ethnicities tend to be corruption prone because the system allows them to do this. And this is what's ridiculed Iraq, that it's become representative of a very, very small elite of Iraqis, which can be traced directly back to the political groups that the US worked with before the 2003 war and occupation. And this is why we are where we are today.
But Dr. Nouri, also shed some light on the youth and the general public of Iraq today. As we understand it, you talked about very clearly, very eloquently, you pointed out when this constitution was made, the flaws in it was from a time where there was a lot of sectarian divide. Is that today's Iraq also?
I think today's Iraq is finally over wanted to be divided based on sect and ethnicity. Today's Iraq is very, very much represented by a very, very prosperity hungry youth, a very, very just youth. A lot of these movements since 2011 that have resulted in protests, in grand amounts of activism, have all been youth-led. And these youths are demanding a unified Iraq, an Iraq that doesn't have any interference from Iran, and an Iraq that has identity as it should belong to Iraqis and the populace, just like the system that was originally promoted and what the Constitution says it does in theory. These youths have been in a predicament where their job prospects are very, very limited. Even if they have university degrees, even if they have qualifications, in a sect-based, cronyism-based and nepotistic state, it's very, very difficult to achieve anything if you're not part of the elite circles. These youths want to live with dignity. They want to live in a meritocracy where they work hard and they achieve based on their merit, not based on their political associations.
So then it seems almost as if Arab Spring 2.0, or also a lot like the kind of complaints that the Lebanese are having as they're demanding for the resignation of the government. In fact, Hariri just resigned. Now, with this situation, we've just heard that the Prime Minister Mehdi's main supporters, they've agreed to work with the demand to remove him. Is this an opportunity for like political opportunism, or this is finally the voices of the youth, the movement being heard?
I think as a direct response to the demands of protesters, it's inevitable that some sort of change has to occur to avoid further tyranny and further dismay, and especially to kind of just show the protesters that, look, we're working on what you want and we're not ignoring your demands. So the Prime Minister being removed is a very, very positive short-term goal. But the problem is that this is, again, a reactive measure. If Iraq wants to be proactive, it needs to think about rewriting its constitution and dedicating a great deal of time to setting the foundations that would unify this great country.
But who would then take responsibility of rewriting the constitution? Are the existing political parties in power or in opposition, are they of the same vision as those that the protesters have?
Well, this is where the divide is, that you've got a bunch of politicians at the moment and many different political parties that think these protests can be solved purely by responding directly to protesters' demands. The problem is that even if they do, that won't cure and curb the corruption that's been so consistent since 2005. Mm-hmm. For the rewriting of the constitution, maybe a referendum needs to take place. Maybe Iraqis need to be more informed about this constitution, and especially more informed about how the previous constitution was made.
So, for example, as we had heard, Mr. Muqtada al-Sadr, who himself is one of a very popular Shiite cleric, as I understand, and he's also leading the largest political bloc in parliament. Is he the kind of person that the Iraqis could turn to lead this project on, to finally get the constitution according to the masses' demands?
I think he can play a pivotal part. Even since 2003, his voice has been strongly recorded alongside Sistani's, and I think it's very, very important that people like himself, who have always uttered the voice of the people and that they are a populist kind of driven party, I think it's very, very important that people like him speak up and ask the relevant questions in regarding how Iraq can deal with its problems in a kind of proactive, long-term view, as opposed to this kind of short-term, just responding with a few kind of changes of the faces in the same system.
Right, and his political rival, Mr. Hadi al-Amiri, he's agreed to help him in bringing down Prime Minister Mahdi. But is then there a concern that these two can get together, sit together, and work cohesively towards this at a time when tensions are really ripe on the street? They're very stressful situation for the protesters.
I think what the Iraqi government need to do immediately is deal with the immediate demands of protesters. So that involves, these protests aren't just about jobs and prospects, they're about a lack of basic services. Mm-hmm. So electricity, water,
Well, one would have to have a functioning government for that, right?
Exactly. So dismantling the government might not be the best solution right now, and changing the face in the government might be an adequate response to kind of curb some of the protests to show that they're doing something.
Like a stopgap arrangement.
It needs, like a stopgap arrangement, but it needs all of the parties to come together, and it needs all the brains of Iraq to unite.
What about bringing bringing out accountability for those who have lost their lives, those unmasked gunmen or masked gunmen who have shot into these crowds?
100% there has to be independent investigations of these, because the freedom and the right to protest is a civil right. It's something that Iraq's constitution provisions, and it's something that can't be violated without the questions and the punishments in place for the violators. So 100% this must come as a direct result of the responses that occur.
All right, Dr. Bamo Nouri, thank you much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. It was lovely talking to you. Thank you for your insight. And here we're going to sign off with this thought that what kind of protests are taking place across the world. And one thing that they do have in common, whether they're in Hong Kong, whether they are in Indian-occupied Kashmir or Baghdad in Iraq, and across the board, is that a lot of this is targeting political powers, leaders in power, in government, for their inadequacies, for their corruption, and for not delivering the people's needs. And with that, we're going to sign off. We will see you next week. Till then, goodbye.